Your power goes out, remember just how inconvenient your life can be. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have power when you need it. Our Generac generators automatically provide backup power after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Get a free 10-year warranty with the purchase of any air-cooled generator. Call Generac Generators today. Generac Generators. Life is primitive without power.
Streaming from the Tampa Bay 28 Weather Center in Studio A, this is Dennis Phillips Live. Sponsored by Generac Generators. Life is primitive without power. And Total Air.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to a Monday night edition of Dennis Phillips Live. Hope you had a great weekend. All the dads out there, hope you had a great Father's Day weekend. You know, I did nothing. It was a beautiful thing. We had a taco party in my kitchen. I didn't have to grill, which was good because it was 11 billion degrees outside. And most of my kids, I mean, you know, my one daughter's in Denver. She couldn't make it. My one son's in New Orleans. He couldn't make it, but everybody else did. And I hope that you had yourself a good weekend as well. So we got some really interesting conversation. We're gonna of course start talking about weather and start talking about tropics, but I'm sure a lot of you have heard the stories and seen the stories. We've run them ourselves after Helene about the product known as aqua, and it was literally life-saving in terms of TGH, because TGH had that fence up and running around the perimeter of the hospital. So when Helene was coming through with a 7-8 foot surge, they were still able to stay in the hospital. They were still able to do life-saving care. And back in the day, before we had that kind of protection, what would have happened? That hospital would have been evacuated. So the technology is really super amazing and very interesting. And I'm going to be talking to Patrick Hansen, who's with Aqua, and share a little bit about how it came to be and, you know, how it's just part of the plan. And we always talk about hurricane season, how we have our plans. We have our hurricane kits. We have what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And in talking to Patrick, and we'll bring him in a couple of minutes after the next break, but that's part of the plan for the state of Florida as well, right? You know, if we can handle flood mitigation, if we can handle other facets. And so I think it's an interesting conversation and one that I'm looking forward to talking about in a couple of minutes. So, you know, let's go ahead and start with what we had today. Did you see Riverview 100 degrees? Yeah, so, I mean, as always of late, look at where all the rain, you know, I'm guessing I've made some pretty poor life choices because I can't think of any other reason why I'm getting no rain. And by the way, a lot of y'all are right there with me. So apparently we have not made the best choices, because look at areas inland. They're getting all the rain. They're no longer in a drought. And we can't even buy a stinking 5-minute shower anywhere west of I-75. But that is the pattern we're in. And oh, look, heavy rain in eastern Polk. Matter of fact, it looks like there's a severe thunderstorm warning just popped up just to the east of Polk County. So as we always do, this is a live show. So we try to focus in on where things are popping. And right there, that little yellow box means there is a severe thunderstorm warning, and it is in areas just to the east of Polk County. So, I mean, literally it's in southeastern Osceola until 8 o'clock. So if you're watching right on the fringe, if you're living in Polk, it's moving away from you. But as of 7:26, this severe thunderstorm was located about 7 miles southwest of Lake Marion. It's moving northeast at 5 miles an hour. And, you know, there might be a bit of hail with this, but it's more than anything, it's typically more just the wind, because it's pretty hard in the atmosphere to support hail when it's 11 billion degrees out. So we're not really seeing any reports of hail in that area. And again, as I mentioned, it is moving east, but still it just kind of goes to show that that's where the heavy rain continues to pop, and that will be the case right on through the rest of the work weekend into the weekend. Denise saying her pool water is now a new high at 89, which is fascinating because Clearwater Beach, Denise, is also 89 degrees water temperature. And man, just a few days ago, it was 84, 85. Barbara, Clearwater, how you doing? Ren, good to see you. Dunedin's in the house with Sherry. Spring Hill. Apollo Beach is here as well. Parrish, nice to see you. So yeah, we definitely have some serious heat. But interestingly enough, look at the feels like temperatures. They're actually a little lower than they were last week, yet the temperatures are a little higher. And you're like, well, wait a minute, what goes here? You're telling me that the feels like temperatures are lower, but the air temperatures are higher? How's that? Makes a lot of sense. We use this analogy all the time. The drier the air, the hotter or the colder it can get. The deserts, some of the hottest spots on Earth, also some of the driest spots on Earth. So when our dew points drop a little bit, a couple things happen. One, it's not nearly as, you don't have the bad hair days because the dew points are a little bit lower. That's a plus. You also don't have the feels like temperatures up to about 105 to 110 because the higher the dew point, the higher the humidity, the higher the feels like temperatures. So today we did not have a heat advisory. And I don't think we're going to have one tomorrow either, even though we're going to be right on the fringe, like 103 to 105. But usually the Weather Service issues those heat advisories when the feels like temperature is 105 to 110 or even a little bit greater than that. Highs today, there they are. They hit the mid to upper 90s. Again, Riverview hit 100, Winter Haven 98, 96 Plant City, 92 St. Pete, Sarasota topped out at 94 degrees. I am with you, Robert. We need rain. I mean, there's just no way around it. We are crispy, and while I read, I don't disagree that you're actually probably pretty right on that. But if you're watching on the spot, as always, we love that you're out there. But the best way to experience this show live is to watch on TV while to have your phone, whether your device, following along to see the comments, because the comments themselves are very entertaining. Far more entertaining than I could ever hope to be. 90 under partly sunny skies at the airport right now. The dew point lower 70s as opposed to upper 70s. That feels like is a balmy 97. There's your high today, 94. That's something I always find. I love this about the area. Our weather is so stable. The average is 91, but the record's like 95 or 96. So think about that. On any given day, our average is 91, and the record's only about 4 degrees higher than that. So the water surrounding us is the main reason the temperatures don't go too high or too low, at least where the official reporting stations are. Now, you go inland, you don't have the water, then you can go 100, like Riverview did today. The high in Tampa, again, 94. There's a look at the satellite, and as you see that little yellow polygon, that's where that severe thunderstorm warning is in Osceola County. And that's all moving off to the east. So futurecast tonight, dry tomorrow afternoon. Oh, look, inland storms and East Coast storms yet again. Weak little front may stall out in northern Georgia on Wednesday, and that's where the models are showing the chance of a couple of showers Pasco County northward. I don't buy it. I'm really thinking it's probably overstated, but we'll keep our eyes on it just in case. If we're real lucky, you might pick up a 3-minute shower. It's the best we can do for now. But I do think next week, those southwest winds begin to shift out of a more southeasterly direction. There's your work week forecast. Highs in the mid-90s each day. Rain chances 10% along the coast. I mean, there it is. I mean, look at it. Tomorrow, almost completely dry. Look at the darker green colors. Where are they setting up? Inland and east. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and again on Saturday, and for that matter, Sunday as well. So great beach weather, highs in the mid to upper 80s. And as Denise mentioned, her pool is 89. So is Clearwater Beach. Oh, I take that back. We've just lost a degree in the last 10 minutes. So Maybe that means, well, no, it won't mean anything. It'll be right back up to 89 tomorrow. Current water temperature, and this just goes to show, if you're watching our 7 o'clock newscast, it was 89. We give you real-time data. There's none of this recorded nonsense here. Everything is happening as we speak, thus the severe thunderstorm warning and that 88-degree water temperature. I know some people that were waiting for it to be about 88. No, 85 is too cold. I'm not going in at 85. 88, 89, you're getting close to that proverbial bathtub water, and that's kind of where we are. Now, a lot of folks ask me, does that mean we are more likely to have a tropical system develop just because our water temperature is 88? It doesn't. It would mean if we could ever get a tropical system in the eastern Gulf, maybe there would be the opportunity for it to develop a little bit quicker. We're always concerned about rapid intensification, but there is nothing going on in the tropics. Matter of fact, I'll show you that quickly. From the Hurricane Center over the next 7 days, no development is expected, and I'll go farther than 7 days. If you take a look at the next 3 weeks, and there it is. This takes us through July 7th, and what do you see in the Gulf and in the Caribbean? That's dry air. What do you see through July 7th? Dry air. What do you see in the tropical main development region? Absolutely zilch, nothing. So we are in a stretch where the tropics are expected to remain very, very quiet, and that is a good thing, even though we do need the rain. But what were to happen if the tropics were to pick up? And what were to happen if we were having to deal with more of a surge issue as we get closer? Well, that's where our next guest is going to come into play. Again, we're talking about aquafence. It was a godsend from around TGH with Helene, and we're going to talk about the physics behind it. We're going to talk about how it became to be in this area, and also what are the possibilities maybe of residential down the road. All those questions answered for you in 90 seconds as DPL continues. Okay, we are in a break. And guys, we are about to bring Patrick in. I will bring the chair over for you here. All right, Patrick, you will sit here. I will hold on to the chair because it has a tendency to scoot when you jump up. There you go. All right, your camera, your straight up camera will be on 2. By the way, everybody, this is Patrick Hansen. Patrick with Aquafence. Patrick, this is everybody. They are all over the place. Osceola County, Kim, how you doing? Good. Oh, Sandy's pool water is 92 degrees. Holy cow. All right, so here's what we're going to do. There's our countdown clock out of the break. Again, your camera is 2. I'm going to start. We'll do a quick hello, and then I'm going to bring in this water, bring in the video that we have. Okay. And you can just kind of look over there, and we'll just kind of talk about it.
Over here?
You'll look here. That's where it'll be hot right there, and it'll just kind of show it as it runs. But I mean, Jules, hi Patrick. Vivian, hi Patrick. Mary, hi Patrick. Anna Maria, hi. So lots of hellos. And let's see. So there's the spot. That's where we're actually on broadcast, but we're still again streaming right now. So yeah, I've had a chance to talk to Patrick, and Patrick has gone from. You said you're Swedish, but were you living in Sweden or were you living in Norway?
So I was born and raised in Sweden.
In Sweden.
Yeah, and then I came over to the U.S. To go to school.
We're back. We're just talking, and we are back on DPL. Everybody on TV, this is Patrick Hansen, Patrick with Aquafence, and we were just kind of talking his background because you're new to this area. You're a new Floridian. How did you get here?
So. I was born and raised in Sweden. I came over to go to school and actually play hockey up in North Dakota.
North Dakota State?
No, University of North Dakota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, up in Grand Forks. And then after college, we moved back to Sweden. We were supposed to be there for 1 year and then moved back to the US again. Ended up being 1 year in Sweden, 15 years in Oslo, Norway. So, and then in 2009, moved up to New York and New Jersey and went there until I joined Aquafence in late December of 24, and then I moved down to Tampa last May.
Got to be culture shock difference.
Well, you were talking about the water temperature. I was talking to my family last week, and we have mid to high 60s in Sweden in the water temperature, and I went to the beach this weekend, and it was phenomenal.
Now, do people swim in the mid 60s?
I don't.
Are there some people who do?
Yeah, I'm sure, but
I'm with you.
Yeah,
well, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Well, Well, welcome. And we're talking about AquaFence. And if you're not familiar, Patrick will give you more of a background on it, obviously. But a couple years ago when Helene was coming, I mean, that made big news because, let's just go ahead and show some of the video of what it is. So when Helene came, y'all started installing the fence around the hospital to protect it from surge. So what are we looking at here in the pictures here?
So that's actually a testing we did about 6 months ago. So we wanted to test, because especially in Florida, you see wind before you see the water. So the system has to be able to be in place before the water comes there. So here we're actually testing for 140-mile-an-hour wind from both sides.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that, because we're thinking about AquaFence works with flooding and it handles flooding, but you do have to take the wind in consideration as well.
Absolutely, and like I said, especially in Florida, you have to anchor the system so it is in place and it can actually perform once the water hits it. Yeah.
So again, what are we looking at right here?
We're looking at Dustin from TGH checking on the system when he's on the dry side and the water is on the other side. Yeah.
So we were talking earlier, the installation at some point, I guess the process is y'all build it and then you teach the folks to do their installation. Yeah. But that just sounds like a massive job. I mean, and how long does that take to actually, like, let's use TGH as an example. How long does it take for that fence to go up?
Well, they're a little special because they have their own crew and they've been doing this for a long time. We've had a relationship with TGH since, I think, 2018, and Dustin does a phenomenal job running his crew. So they start a little bit early, but what we usually say is that 4 to 5 people can deploy around 300 linear feet an hour. So it can go up pretty quick, but the system is customized, it's highly engineered, so our engineers, they go out ahead of time and before we manufacture the system and take 3D graphics of the whole structure, because every structure is different. Mm-hmm. So in order for it to perform, especially with us working with a lot of critical infrastructure, and we have a saying in AquaFence that failure is not an option, and that's why we take this very seriously. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Well, and it's got to be a game changer for surge, because we always say, my theme is hide from the wind, run from the water. Yeah. Water is obviously, and we're not talking freshwater flooding, which is obviously an issue in itself. We're talking about surge, because there's just, in the past, there was nothing you could do. And now, and it isn't just this area. I mean, y'all have been handling, you were talking about Sandy, the superstorm, because if you remember, New York City, I mean, that area got devastated by the water from Sandy superstorm. So this is something that is just growing and growing.
Yeah, so I would say we are a global company. We've been around for 26, 27 years, and we've done between 500 and 600 installations. And what we're seeing lately is that the weather pattern is changing. Mm-hmm. They're becoming more frequent, more severe, mm-hmm. More unpredictable. And that's not just hurricanes, that's just storms and rain in itself. So yes, it's very important to be more proactive than reactive. And that's why we're trying to be helpful, yeah.
And I might argue with you that they're more unpredictable, considering I predict them for a living. But I definitely agree with you in terms of the warmer water and whatnot. Yeah. They're getting stronger faster, and they're pushing more water. Yeah. And so, but yet, we're talking about the physics, about how it works, which I find fascinating. And I'm guessing maybe some people at home might think that would be a snooze fest. But what you were telling me, this brings it back down to the people. And you had a really, really heartwarming story about a woman whose mom was in the hospital when the storm was on the way, or the storm was coming, yes?
Yeah, so before we found our new home here in Tampa, we spent a lot of time, our CEO and myself, going up and down the Florida West Coast, and we were checking out of a hotel, about to fly back to New York, and this is January, February last year, and we're speaking Swedish, Norwegian, and she came up to me and she's like, so what language are you speaking? And I'm like, oh, probably Swedish, Norwegian. And she's like, are you here on business or in pleasure? And we told her that we were here in business. We're in the flood mitigation industry. And I could see that tears were coming down her eyes, and she asked if she could give me a hug, and I said, sure. And she was telling us that her mom was at the hospital during the hurricanes, and she did not have to evacuate. And like I said, I spent 25 years on Wall Street in the finance industry, and hearing stories like this just makes a world of difference. Then this is important.
Well, and Helene was one of those storms. It was a benchmark storm for this area, because prior to that, it had been 100 years since we had a major surge event, literally 1921. And now people kind of know what it can do, good and bad. And we're going to hit a break, but when we come back, I'm curious just what kind of a surge it can handle, and you know, how you might be making this eventually available to residential folks as well. So we'll talk about that in 90 seconds as Dennis Phillips Live continues. Okay, second break. All right, this is our second break, right? Yeah, we have one more still. Time flies. This show just goes so fast with breaks. So David wants to, and we'll ask this, how would this product handle a storm like an Andrew or a Katrina? And I think we can talk about that just based on, well, you know, let's talk about the whole wind versus surge issue, because is there a point where there's just too much wind? You know, I'm curious about that. And the surge we talked about was 9 feet, right?
Yeah, so
and we'll get this when we come back, because we're still on a break, but go ahead.
The system's been tested for 140 mile an hour, and
well,
that's on ground level. So what's a Cat 5?
156.
Exactly, but that's measured 30 feet up in the air. So 140 on the ground, you're talking 160, 170, 30 feet up in the air. So we're confident that if we're anchored correctly, it's going to withstand a lot of wind. Okay. But I mean, we're part of the system. We're part of the solution.
10 seconds. Red says, Patrick, thank you for all you do. Touching story, Patrick. So, yeah, I mean, we're back in. It's hard. 5 seconds, I think. All right, back in 3, 2. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Dennis Phillips Live. If you're just tuning in, we are here with Patrick Hansen, who's with Aquafence. And if you're not familiar with Aquafence, I'm sure you heard the story when Helene was coming and we had that massive surge. Aquafence protected the hospital. And we are getting a lot of questions asking about, you know, just what kind of wind can it sustain and how high of a surge can it sustain. I found this was fascinating, and this is a little sciencey, granted, but, you know, it makes sense. The higher the fence, the more vulnerable it might be in terms of the forces itself. So, I mean, you're at what, 9 feet now?
Correct.
With TGH?
Yeah.
But the winds, I mean, it can handle pretty much nearly Cat 5 winds.
Yeah, so we've tested the system at 140 miles an hour, and that was the max that the testing facility could do. And that's why, so we're very confident that as long as the system is anchored correctly, we're good. Then, and once the water hits the system, the water is going to keep it in place. So we're just worried about the wind ahead of the water.
And it's fascinating because that water, even though it's causing the damage, it's also what keeps things in place and gives the strength.
Correct.
Which is the physics behind it, which I think is really fascinating. What about residential?
I would say we do have a prototype, and that I hope to be able to launch in not too long. I don't want to give a date yet, but we're not too far out. But what's important is performance, that the system actually performs and does what it's supposed to do. We're not just going to bring a system out that because the demand is there. Demand is here, but I want a system that's, number one, affordable, and it performs. Especially now we have our industrial product that we know we've been tested for 26 years. I don't think it's going to take 26 years for the residential product, but it has to perform. That's the number one most important thing for us.
And lastly, you were talking, you've been to Tallahassee.
Yes.
And, you know, and it's the conversation with, you know, everybody in Tallahassee. It is not a single thing that we're doing, that we're trying to protect the state. There are so many different facets in hurricane protection, and this is just one of them.
We're part of the solution. We're not be all and all of like doing this, but we're probably the only, or we are the only engineered, customized solution. So there are a lot of off-the-shelf products out there, and I'm not gonna knock any of them, but I think if you do something, doing something is better than nothing,
Sure.
especially when you're maybe at a foot or not too much. But once you get over 3 feet, you're starting to deal with some pretty big forces, especially horizontal forces that you have to be very, very careful about, because it all of a sudden can start damaging or damaging structures, and you don't want to do that.
And the website, if people wanted to get in touch, do you have a website that they can?
Yeah, aquafence.com.
Easy enough?
Yeah.
All right, we got to hit one more break. We'll be back in 90 seconds with our final segment of Dennis Phillips Live. And we literally have about 65 seconds when we come back on the backside. It does. Yeah. It does. And it's interesting subject matter, too. So, and, you know, the comments and whatnot. So now this is interesting. Red has asked, have you spoken to the Shark Tank? And I mean, this is just a much larger scale, obviously. I mean, because they're asking about, you know, Home Depot and Lowe's and stuff. Okay, that is a good question.
I would actually love to answer that one.
Okay, well, we're going to have about 75 seconds. Well, no, I take that back. We'll be able to, okay, I'll ask the question.
Yeah.
Let me see. Actually, how much have we got left? 45. We're out at 55. We'll have about 2 minutes. And then we continue on Facebook. But if we want to get it on broadcast, well, let's end it with that. We'll end it with that. So we'll come back at it, and I'll say, interesting question from Red wants to know if this is a product. You want to talk about Home Depot and Lowe's, right?
No, just like it's important to say that this is an engineered product. So it's not an off-the-shelf. It's every structure is different.
Got it.
And that's the whole misconception about flood mitigation, that, okay, I'm just going to go buy a sandbag. I'm just going to buy a barrier. No, you don't, because every structure is different. You have to have an engineered approach to this, and that's especially when it comes to critical infrastructure.
Okay, great. We'll be back in 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome back to our last quick segment on Dennis Phillips Live. We did want to mention one thing, Patrick Hansen with Aquafence, and one of the questions, great question, Reddit asked, she's like, well, is this ever going to be available at a Home Depot or a Lowe's? And I guess, Patrick, we were talking about the issue is, this is not just an off-the-shelf thing. To really resolve a flood issue, this has to be engineered for that particular area, yeah?
Or that particular structure, because every structure is different, both when it comes to age, elevation differences, and in order to do this correctly, especially when it comes to critical infrastructure, it has to be customized and engineered. So, yeah, would we love to work with Home Depot or any of those? Yeah, absolutely, but I don't think it's ever going to be an off-the-shelf product. Maybe the residential one, but not the industrial one.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, I mean, we're all hoping that it's going to be a quiet season.
Yeah.
And you now being a Floridian, you're certainly hoping for the same. Yeah. But again, thank you so much for coming out. I'd always wondered, because we've done stories and we had seen, you know, the impacts, but I never really thought about how it actually worked. And you all have been working on this for decades. I mean, this is not an overnight thing.
We have, and whenever you're down in Water Street or on Water Street, stop by our office. We have a couple of systems up there and in our office, and you can touch it and feel it, and it's pretty robust. So it's big.
Awesome.
But thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming out, Patrick. I really appreciate it. Guys, let's take one last check at the radar, again, because we did have a severe thunderstorm warning going on for Osceola County. Let's go ahead and call up radar real quick. Here it is. And that box is no longer there, so it looked, I take that back. Yes, it is. It's surrounded by all that yellow and red and orange. So briefly, for another few minutes, there's a severe thunderstorm warning for Osceola County until 8 o'clock. So again, thank you very much for tuning in to Dennis Phillips Live. We will be back tomorrow, as always, on 7:30 on the spot. More heat, more humidity, more inland storms. Hopefully we can get that pattern changed by early next week. Have a great night. And we are off TV, still on streaming. All right. Does anybody? So are you? Now, Anna Maria is saying something like, "Show us photos of your home after you install it." So I will say something I found fascinating. I did see this on Shark Tank. I don't know if you heard this, and you might appreciate this as well. So there, somebody invented for fires, for houses out west, right?
Okay.
That there is a platform that the home is built on, and if a fire's coming, they literally press a button and it opens up, and the structure goes down below ground, and then it closes on top of it.
Yeah.
And they did fund them with several $1 million, but the shark who did it said, "My house has to be the prototype."
Right.
Which was interesting,
Yeah.
because she lost her house in the LA fires. So, do you guys have prototypes for homes? I mean, how does that actually work?
I mean, yes, we have done residential homes, but very large residential homes, because, like I said, we have to, especially the industrial product, we have to anchor it in hardscape. So a lot of times we have to do a concrete slab around the house. And just the concrete slab can be very, very expensive.
It's pricey, right?
Yeah, and then you have the system on top of it. So yes, there's been some really big homes that have decided to like make that investment, but I think for the smaller, more average homes, it's not feasible. It's too expensive.
Well, and it makes sense. But if you think about it, in our area, any home that's really on the water, it
should have it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because we had an 8 or 9 foot surge with Helene. If that storm was 150 miles offshore and we still had a 7 or 8 foot surge, imagine if it had been 10 miles offshore.
Yeah.
We would have had a 12 to a 14 foot surge.
Yeah.
And that's obviously one of the worst case scenarios. So anyway, again, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Patrick, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And you guys have a great night, and we'll be back tomorrow night on our next edition of Dennis Phillips Live. You guys have a great night.